This is going to be like kind of a quick rundown on how to do these water pumps on these Fords. This is a Ford Explorer 3.7 engine. Now, okay, so anyway, here's kind of the main trick. I'll get to the top in a minute. There's a bolt. That one there. You could get in there with like a little gear wrench or something like that. I'm using this shit, and this is how I get in there. So you don't have to take these phasers and shit off, because the problem you're gonna run into is this guide is in the way of the water pump itself, so you're not gonna be able to just pull it out. So just loosen that bolt up there as much as you can. You don't have to take it all the way out, but it's going to come out a little bit. Again, just so you have enough room to, you know, move the shit here so you can clear the water pump. But that's tip one, I guess. This may be a problem you run into if you're trying to, as you can see, it's not exactly on the dot, and it's kind of stretched out. So what I'm going to do, this is why I don't use that tool either. So I'm going to fucking use a wrench on this. I'm not going to do this with one fucking hand, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this way, so it'll, see, because if I go counterclockwise the tiniest little bit, then it's gonna, that dot is gonna line up with that chain. Alright, so I literally just moved that thing over a little fucking hair, and now that white mark is directly on that dot, and I also put a white dot here so I know that it's, so just in case it does fall off, I can like find my fucking spot again. And this side, I don't even have to touch it, but I mark it anyway. It's only this side that I touch, and the bottom. I'll show you the bottom when it's all together. Okay, so now I'm on the bottom of the car. You can see where I made my two marks. Well, you can't really see it on this camera. Plus the fucking thing wiped off, the white. But here's the one, and there was another one here, because this part of the chain is supposed to be directly in here, whereas this dot on the crank actually goes right like along the very side. So this chain goes in there, and this one you can see a little bit of the white in this. So now everything's lined up here, and what I do, I just put a zip tie on here to keep it together, and then I'm gonna put the guides on and the tensioner and all that shit, and then I'm gonna cut that zip tie when it's all over. Just a quick little tip, there's like a little spring there. You just kind of, you know, close it together. I put it on a vice bench, and then I put that pin in there to keep it collapsed so you could get it on easy. Alright, so now I got pretty much everything on. That zip tie is there. So what I'm going to do off camera, because I only got one hand, I'm going to keep this on. I'm going to cut it while I hold pressure to this, and then I'm going to pull the pin, and that's it. And then we're going to recheck our timing marks and make sure everything's right. Alright, so now tensioner's on, zip tie is off. It's kind of hard with the, so I got the one painted mark directly in line with that. The other one over here, that dot is in between the two chains. So down here is lined up. Alright, so we're back up top now. And that's still there, and line with that dot. Actually, I go by this dot is usually directly in line with this bolt for the actuator. and on this side it's one tooth off from, so either way I'm good up here too. And the chain is tight, not a lot of slack, so it's nice and tight. So I'm good to go here, and I'll give you a quick rundown of all the other shit. And but just a quick note, if you're taking off the valve covers, the hardest part about this is pretty much to take the timing cover off. That's really the hardest part about this. Alright, so the next step here, once you get all your chain and all that stuff is good, you gotta scrape all this shit off the block. So that's gonna be your next step. Now, another thing to note, I'm on a lift. I don't have anything supporting this engine. Basically, the axle is kind of supported on the subframe, so don't worry about, like, because I've seen guys where they're worried about the engine and they're like doing this on the ground to keep the engine supported. I mean, I use that, but I'm gonna have to support the engine when I put that that cover back on. All right, next step, you gotta scrape all the crap off of that. Alright, so now I got my engine supported here, because it's a pain in the ass to try to squeeze the cover in there, so I try to set it up where I have enough room here. But the hardest part too is when you put the silicone to squeeze this thing through here without all the fucking silicone going everywhere. But if you're doing this, it's not going to be pretty, but it's got to be okay. Alright, timing cover's on. I put these bolts on first just to hold it up. And now I just got to put all these bolts back in there, which are all those there. Alright, so I got this timing cover on, bolted down. Now I took out these two studs, wherever the fuck they are. Yeah, so I took out the studs. The only thing that has to go in is I got to put this pulley back on, the mount, you know, this, and the intake in the bottle, which really isn't a big deal. But just to give a couple quick tips, like on the valve cover, first of all, it's a pain in the ass with these red clips. They're a pain in the ass to put on there. Alright, so I got the mount in. Now I could go on the bottom and put on that crank pulley. Alright, to get this crank back in, pretty much I just take a fucking damn it. Pretty much to get this thing back in, I just put a 32mm axle socket, and it fits like perfectly in that hole, and I just basically hit it on with a hammer. To get it out, you need that special tool though. This is the special tool. Alright, got the pulley on, got the belt on. All I gotta do is drain the stuff, because when you drain the water pump, all that shit is gonna be in the oil pan, so make sure you drain this oil pan when you're done. Alright, just a little note, but back here on this plug, on the valve cover itself, you can see that black plastic bracket. Basically, when you're trying to pull the valve cover out, that thing's gonna get stuck on there, so just be aware of that. I just wind up breaking that shit off just because it pisses me off. So, since I'm a flat rate mechanic, I had this AC line out so I could get the cover on and all this shit. So while I'm bolting these covers down, I'm gonna let the AC machine do its thing. That's flat rate